So for those who don't know, my name's Chris Newell, CEO of ImpulsePay. What I thought I'd cover today is just really about kind of what's happening about Payforit in general, and I think everybody here is kind of familiar, with Payforit. It's sort of part of the kind of charge to mobile direct billing kind of marketplace on that. So a little bit about sort of ImpulsePay. So we're sort of directly connected on all the UK mobile networks. We're very much kind of focused on the sort of charge to mobile opportunities out there. So we sort of like the kind of technology behind Payforit, and what we're trying to do is find ways to make that better for more kind of mainstream sort of out there. And a bit like what James was saying earlier on, actually, that we're not so interested in trying to take from someone else and mess things around and stuff like that, but actually look at those new opportunities out there, using things that we can do today to see how we can bring new services to the PRS sort of industry on that. And really, that's the way we work. We sort of look for innovative services. We look for how we can do those, and we can work with channel partners, and we try to, we know our kind of place is that kind of point of conversion, so we try to be the best at that, and then allow the other people that we work with to do, be the best at what they kind of do on that. So just sort of go back a little bit in time. So 2009 was really where we got into Payforit. And back then it's sort of a slightly different world, so everyone was convinced, and there's a session like this in Malta, maybe, where we were. Yeah, somewhere like that, and we're all convinced that Payforit is about to be dropped, and that's the end of the world for Payforit, and the networks will just sort of give up and move on that. And it's I think it's done pretty well since then. It's had its ups and downs along the way, but overall, every year it's improving and increasing and getting better and better. 2012 was really the kind of rebirth of Payforit. So I think during that time there was a really good attention was put onto the actual kind of user experience. So yes, we know how to say too many words to make sure the consumer knows exactly what they're doing, but we actually sort of started learning then that if you say too much, the consumer give up, and actually sometimes there's better ways of doing things on that. 2013, the Payforit Management Group was established, and I think this is a major asset to the UK industry. This is a group of all the networks that meet every month. They have conference calls in between that as well. And as a merchant, you can come straight into that group with your API. You can present your kind of concept of what you want to do. It might just be that you want to make a green button blue. You might want to completely change something and come up with something so new and innovative that it's going to just blow everyone away. But the previous way of doing it, you had to go around each network individually to get that sign-off. And since 2013, we've had this asset in the UK where we can just go to this meeting, we can get an hour to explain it, we can have follow-up meetings, and the emphasis really is how do we approve it? It's not we don't like this idea, so how do we kill it so it doesn't come back? It's like we like this, change that, come back again, and it's okay. And we've been kind of doing that process, and I think if we look at Payforit generally, it's a 30 million a year industry. If it's going to grow to 150 million a year, more than that even, it needs the kind of processes and procedures established. And the good thing is that they are now established in the UK, and that is a catalyst for the kind of growth on that. From a mobile perspective, Vodafone has a renewed focus in this area, and I think they've done tremendous work this year. With what they've been doing there, and a lot of it behind the scenes, it doesn't necessarily become apparent to people, but as time goes on, that will come out, and that's a great sort of boost on that. O2 has been investing heavily for over 2 years. They built a whole new charge to mobile platform. They've rolled that out, and it's a great platform within that. EE, they're launching their new platform in November, so that's going to bring dynamic billing. So this is penny price points from 5 pence to £30. When EE do this, that means that we can bill £17.99 on all networks now, which is a fantastic place to be in, and there's something we've been pushing for years there. Even free, they're kind of starting to reward. They've sort of released new rates that are very much target driven. So there's been a bit of pushback that the low bands were a bit too low, but the high bands are actually pretty good. It just takes a bit of time to get there, unfortunately, but. Each network is doing its bit in its own way. They can never work all together, effectively. But I think they are pushing forwards, with that. Oops. And one of the things sort of discussed slightly before there. So on the the commercial development there. So we launched ImpulsePay launched Bill Mobile earlier on this year. So this is focused on £5 to £30 price points. No adult, no competition, sort of no kind of high risk services. Doesn't work on Virgin, Tesco's, giffgaff, O2 Business, which is about 5% of the market, so it's not really worth doing it. But what that said is for new people, outside of here, so the other train company that aren't using us, or the people that are going to credit card as their primary way of doing it, here's actually a mobile billing solution that is better, than what you previously thought was there. And it's at a price point that the finance guy can look at it and say, well, it's not going to cannibalise my business if it doesn't work. It's within a territory that I'm comfortable with working with. So from that, it just becomes a numbers game of how many people can we hit every month to keep pushing and pushing to do it. And it's been doing very well since then. It takes all mobile payments. Those kind of companies with all mobile payments takes time for them to go live and get established. But we are starting to see more companies going, and each month you're building on that there. Even so, one of the big things to pay for has been enhanced single click, and that was I was sat here 3 years ago, 2.5 years, 3 years ago, talking about that. And I think the thing to remember is that any technology has an evolution curve, and whilst it served its purpose, it is good for a while, and it's evolving from that. I think we're actually at a crossroads point where in 3 months' time it becomes irrelevant. With the PMG, the new concept coming out to the market. That we've made it so easy for people to launch stuff. People come up with their own ideas, and this is an idea that's 3 years old. There's better things than that out now. So while that has been one of the big things, I'll be quite disappointed if I'm here next year and people are still talking about it. I'd like to think that we're actually moving on past that now, and we're still moving into new territory with new ideas and new stuff on that. But there's no point just dropping what we have today just because of something new. We have to keep evolving and keep sort of going with the times on that one, really. And so just, sort of touching on the Payforit Management Group. So, we've just from our sort of experience, so we've kind of launched 5 new kind of concepts through that. And I think really one of the areas that, that sort of a bit of work going on at the moment is trying to speed up that process. So start to finish, you're probably talking a 2 or 3 month kind of process of getting a new service live. And I think, really what we should be looking for is a 2 or 3 week process of getting the services live. But the situation we're in now is that is one of the only discussions we need to have with the networks. We don't need to do all these other things about dynamic billing or better payouts. We're just basically asking them how can we do what we want to do quicker, and we'll find a solution to that in due course on that one there. So I think the big thing that's sort of coming out that we're going to sort of start getting sort of involved with really is Payforit5. Payforit4 was launched 2 and a bit years ago. We're now due the next kind of update to that. We've had 4.1 in the meantime, but really I think it's a major revision is now due to it. AIM, which I think Rory somewhere there. So AIM are leading the way. So usually these things. So it starts off from the AIM kind of working groups. We get various people, the various kind of stakeholders, the L1s, the major L2s. Around the table, we kind of discussed, what we need to be looking at, and then from that, those kind of ideas are then formulated into the networks. From that, I would say that Payforit5 is probably unlikely to include things like adult services and competition services because they're quite well addressed within Payforit4. But there's so many other areas to it that we're not addressing at all that really Payforit5 should be looking at those. So the kind of plug for AIM here is, if you want to be involved in that, then join AIM, and Rory's sitting at the back. But you're probably aware of that already. One of the things I'd like to see, from it really is kind of evolving, the screens of Payforit. So really, what we should be looking at, is how do we take the kind of designs out of the rules? Because it doesn't really matter what colour the background is, what colour the header boxes are, where the pricing is in proportion to the operator logos or something like that. All things that we've had yellow cards for in the past, I think, as well there. But really, what rules should be looking at is things like transaction security. So when we send the MT method, when we send the user a PIN code, how long is that PIN code valid for? How many attempts do they get to retry it? What is the information on the PIN code? Outside of that, the design should be up to the L2. It needs to be done on the L1's platform, but it should be the L2 that can stipulate that they want to have a nice branded site that works really well for them. The L1 can figure out how to build it. And then you kind of monitor that from the background. So then you say, well, if these services are getting too many calls, then you need to look at it. If it's within an acceptable boundary, then it's okay. And I think when you combine that with low-risk services, that creates an opportunity that is great to sort of be working towards there. And having just come from 2 PSD2 and FCA presentations, the next big thing is getting physical as well there. So I think the two alternative approaches, so the FCA, the e-money license route, which James can talk much more about that than I can, PhonePay Plus and the PSD2 kind of route there. And I think we are likely to see transactions limited. We've got bad debt, in the back of the mind there. We've got things about going too high in the price point there. So up to a sort of €30 or £30 territory, we're probably pretty good there. But the big thing here is, same before, it doesn't need one or the other to win this market. What we need is just any of them out there, and all of that is increasing the marketplace. And I think that creates should be a billion, multi-billion-pound marketplace. There's going to be an interesting battle or debate or face-off between the FCA and PhonePay Plus, and it'd be nice to sort of sit on the sidelines for that one, for once there, and see where that one go. I think from all of this, Payforit to me is in a pretty good position, and it's got a lot of, it's going to take time to work through, and it's got a lot of potential there, but it's definitely worth getting involved and doing more on it. But I think we also have to be mindful of actually, kind of where can it all, go wrong. And to me, it's a broken customer service. So these are, sort of typical excuses that we see. People just outright deny that they ever use the site, and they say, I've never made that purchase. Sometimes, the person complaining is not the bill payer, so the child used the parent, the example before that, the daughter went off and deliberately ran up a big bill just to annoy her mother on that. There's nothing that we can really do about those. Or from the affiliate marketing sort of stuff this afternoon, the website might say it's free or it's been misleading, and they come to the point of purchase and not quite what they thought it had. And then what tends to happen is that then get compounded, it goes into call centres, and operator call centres are huge environment. You've got thousands of people, very high kind of churn. There's not really much you can do about it. You can try to educate them, but it's just constantly moving to keep up, running to keep up on that one. And what you then see is, sort of the excuses change slightly. So lack of training results in people saying like all payments are a scam. Just completely useless advice is given out sometimes. It says, go file a small claims court action, and we all complain about PhonePay Plus, and they're not even telling them to go to PhonePay Plus there. And I think actually probably the worst case scenario is the operator, the call centre person, maybe they're just at the end of their shift and they want to go home. They just say, right, we'll just refund you, and complete disregard to the fact that the merchant can prove the transaction took place and they're perfectly entitled to charge. And they just whack it on, refund you, and it's a charge back at the end of the month on that. And those are kind of the issues. I think that if we don't really try to sort of address those, they're only kind of going to get sort of kind of worse, really for us. And the internet, that should be the answer, really, but possibly it's not at the moment. There's definitely a big drive by the network to get all the information onto the bill. So I think by going into Q1 next year for direct bill or charge for mobile stuff, each network will have the telephone or helpline number printed on the bill. So there should be no reason why the consumer can't get in touch with the merchant. What's happening is that fewer consumers are looking at their bill. So we kind of solved one problem, we have a new problem to deal with instead on that. So what then happens, we found that consumers then go to online forums, and these are kind of moderated by people that are not connected to the mobile companies, they're not connected to the industry. They put themselves across as experts at what they do, but then in reality they've had no training in PRS services and have no real idea about the support network that goes in behind it. And to me, this is a problem that doesn't scale up, and we can put it off and say, it's not our problem as an industry to deal with, it's the network's problem. The networks have a remit to do customer care, but that's a call centre, it's not really the online kind of world. Or we find a way to work together to try to address this problem. But I think the underlying issue here, that if we try to keep putting it off, it doesn't actually solve the problem, and it just comes back further down the line that we need to be looking at fixing it. And the last slide, but one really, though, the MNOs are adopting their own approach, and this is possibly a sign of how bad things could be if we just sort of leave them, to it. An unnamed network now, does kind of random customer care surveys, after a transaction. And typically, you're talking 2 to 6 weeks after a transaction takes place, you get a text message asking you what you thought of that transaction, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And just playing devil's advocate here, so the top 2 there, 10 out of 10, were adult services. So, contrary to belief, some people do rate adult services quite highly, and that's, shock to us as well there. The 1 out of 10, so spare room, somebody replied back saying they have no idea what's going to appear on their phone bill and no knowledge of having purchased anything, on their mobile phone ever. And they rated it 1 out of 10. And then Virgin Train, which is usually a good example of someone, that you can't accidentally buy that and not realise, or can't have a problem with that kind of service, threatening to go to a small claims court because, something unrelated to transaction was causing them a problem. But what happened is that customer care score is then linked to their internal customer satisfaction targets, which then means you've got senior people in the network running around going, is mobile billing causing a problem on that? And I think as an industry, that's one of the areas that we need to be addressing. Now that we're getting all these other areas sorted out, we need to really be addressing the customer service problem there. So in summary, Payforit continuing to evolve, and I think it's keeping pace. It's not designed to go out there and be everything for anyone, but it's improved massively over the years. The commercial proposition, which is a big improvement for this year, is great, and that's only going to open up more opportunities out there. The kind of physical goods, quasi-physical goods marketplace opening up, so that kind of give a big expansion. But probably a takeaway point from this, if there's a bad customer service happening, then that's going to hinder all of this. So collectively, we should be working together to try to fix those issues before it becomes a big problem in the future there. And if you want to get in touch, those are my details, or talk to Rory about joining AIM as well there.